another reason why, today that I felt the nudge to really start pushing toward creating leading impact is to how do we, not just the leadership side, how to lead well and how to lead through the lens of servanthood and how to lead in an educational world. I mean, that is my niche. That's my background. But even as I broaden, I have over the last year broadened out of just education and talking to people and coaching people and having conversations with people around what does it look like to lead well? It's that mindset of like, how do you, like I had a principal, I'll give you an example. I had a principal one time, I would show up and he would be like, hey, can we just sit and talk? And literally I would sit in his office for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and he literally just wanted to talk. And I told him, I was like, I don't feel well about this because I feel like you're not getting what you're paying for. And he's like, oh, I'm getting way more than what I'm paying for. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you don't understand sometimes how lonely it feels just to sit at the top.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I do. Like I've been there, right? Yeah. But not in the climate of which you're serving in right now. Like I've not been in your shoes, but I've been in your shoes, but not in today's time, right? And that was, those shoes for me were 6-7 years ago and 8 years ago. And so for him, it's like, I just need somebody to talk to. I need somebody that can talk to me, that can mentor me, listen to me, and help me navigate the era of which I'm in.
Yeah.
That's what I need. And for him, so it really opened my eyes to the shift in climate that, and we see it every day, right? We see it in the news. We see it on social media. We see it everywhere. And for him, that's what he needed. And so that's another reason, another driving force behind why I felt like God 2 years ago really started pushing and stirring in my heart and soul. Like if people that know me, right, for those of you that don't know, Daniel and myself, right? Daniel's a good friend of mine. He's the guru behind the panels and the videos and the controls and the things. For me, those of you that know me, Daniel, like the idea for me to sit down and write a book. Yeah, right. People would be like, because I'm a go. Like I got to be doing something.
Yeah.
And so when I felt like God was stirring me toward writing a book, I'm like, okay, there's a bigger plan. I don't think it's just to put pen to paper or finger to keys. Although what is the point and what are you trying to do? And I really felt like God was pushing me toward like leading impact. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I didn't know that's what it would become. And when God calls you into something, Jonah, when God calls you into something, He's going to get you there. Now, the route we take is a lot of the stubbornness, right, for us. And so as I felt the nudge toward that, I was not obedient because I felt probably because of being comfortable. And I was comfortable with what I was doing, even though I was struggling kind of with some moral dilemma about where I was at. And I won't talk about that, but the moral dilemma I had between what you're saying and what you're projecting of who we are and what we're about versus the way that you're leading and treating and the people internally or who's in the work projecting this mantra, vision, mission, whatever you want to call it, is not the same.
Yeah.
And, as I felt comfortable where I was at, because I did, I enjoyed what I was doing, but I felt like God was pushing me in a different direction. And because I was comfortable, I heard Him and I kind of felt the stir, but I didn't obey.
Sure.
And I think that's what led to May the 9th, 2024. And I mean, you walk with me through that. And so you understand, like, I feel like, that was the wake up call.
And that's probably a recurring theme in everybody's life. The people that would listen to this, the people that would get anything out of this, is that you probably felt whether you're a religious person or you're a non-religious person, you've had some gut checks.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta go this direction. I gotta do this, but you don't have the courage, or you don't have the wisdom. You don't have the tools needed to take that next step. And that's a challenge for anybody, wherever you're at in your walk in life, is getting the motivation and the courage and the resources that you need to jump into the water.
That's right.
Because you're sitting there on the dock and you're sitting there and you're going, oh my goodness, I know I need to do this. I know I need to lead my team this way. I know I need to lead my students. I need to lead my family. I need to lead them this way, but I have to have the courage to jump off the dock. And at the same time, I have to give them the courage to jump off of their docks.
So, yeah, I guess we probably should have hit on that earlier. That why are we even calling this? Why am I calling this the Jump Off the Dock podcast? And like, what is significant about May the 9th, right? We probably should have hit on that earlier. But for me, so May the 9th was a turning point for me. I was headed home from the gym. My twin brother, he and I used to work out together every morning until, shifts in life happened. But we were lifting weights together, and I left because my wife is a teacher. So Amy was working, had early duty that morning, had to get to school early that morning. At the time, we had 2 elementary students. One now was in middle school. God bless him. And so I left to come home. And as I was headed home, I was a half a mile from home and come around the curve and flipped and rolled my Jeep. And as I went into the roll, I remember the roll, and I remember sliding down the road and going into the spin, and I was trying to dodge oncoming traffic. But when I hit the embankment, I don't remember nothing after that. And so I was dreaming, in a dream, I was dreaming that I was having a wreck and that things were happening. And in that, I was laying in the ditch. In my dream, I was laying in a ditch, and it was raining, and I heard somebody speak to me and say, "Hey, Trey, I need you to wake up. I need you to wake up. I need you to wake up." And I came to of what I thought I was waking up out of a dream.
Yeah. And
I was not waking up out of a dream. Like, I was literally laying in a ditch in the rain, and I looked down the road, and my Jeep was probably 30, 40 yards down from me. It had ripped the top out of the Jeep and threw me out of it. And when I came to of what I thought, was coming out of a dream, but it wasn't, I looked to see who was talking to me, and there was nobody there. And me, obviously, being very devout and knowing that Jesus is the center and got a plan for us all, I knew in the moment that it was the Holy Spirit saying, "Hey, buddy, we ain't finished yet."
Yeah.
And so as the trauma, you were you got to the hospital, pretty soon after I got there, and was in the emergency room with Amy and I. And, through that journey, and as I got into ICU and finally got to a point where I could sit and think about and reflect about what had happened, knowing I should not even have walked away from that.
Yeah.
And for the doctor to come in and say, "Hey, listen, bud, it's a good thing that you were lifting weights with your brother, because if you had not been there, you would not have been in somewhat of shape. We probably wouldn't be talking." In his words were, you've been in a 12-round fight with Mike Tyson. As I sat there thinking about, I'm hurting and I'm beat up and I'm struggling to breathe some, but I'm gonna walk out of here and go home. He told me, you don't have any broke bones, you don't have any internal damage. And as I sat in ICU and I was talking to Amy, she left one morning to go get food for us. Like, I just had to come apart, because I knew that there was a higher purpose, there was something bigger. And I feel like, and I knew that, as I sat and I reflected and started praying, that God was saying, "Listen, I told you there was something bigger. I pointed you the direction, and I put something in you, and I've called you to step into something. As scary as it looks, I'm asking you to step out of this and to step into this calling, to step into something different. Now, do I have your attention?"
Yeah.
And I think that that was, I don't think that was the turning point for me to say, okay, I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to become. But going right back, you hit it on the head, right back to what you were saying is like those people who are looking to figure out, and the jump off the dock, right? So jump off the dock. Why are we calling it Jump Off the Dock podcast? Well, it comes from an experience with Rhett, my middle son. So the book that I'm working on, that's kind of the inner silver lining, interwoven thread through the whole thing, is this story and discussion about he and I at the lake one day. And if you know anything about, people that know me, if you ever met Rhett, you would know he's an old soul. You know him well.
Yeah.
He's an old soul, and he's not. Amy calls him Cautious Carl, and so
I got a new name for him.
But he really is. Like, he really is, and it's like he's going to take his time. He's very cautious about everything he does, and so the thought and the premise when he came to me, I was sitting in the lake in a floaty chair, just enjoying it, and he comes to me, and so her cousins have a place, and the dock is 2 stories, and it's probably 18 feet at least, maybe 20 from the top. And so he comes to me and he says, "Hey, Dad, I want to jump off that." And for him, to a lot of people, it's like, oh, he's jumping off. But for Rhett to say, "Hey, I want to go jump off that," is so far out of his character.
Yeah.
Way far out of his character. And so the first initial thought was like, I'm in this chair, I don't want to move.
Yeah.
But I quickly turned and thought, okay, he's wanting to jump off the dock. And I've got a moment here, and as his dad, how am I going to lead him well to get him to jump off this dock? Because this is not in his character, and it's something he's wanting to do, and it's something that I think in the moment, if done right, will get him out of this mindset of never wanting to do something different, never wanting to do something new, never wanting to take a risk, never wanting to take initiative to step forth and do something. And it was a very, very integral part, I feel like, of my relationship with him. And as a dad in the book, through the lens of steps of effective leadership, how does it intertwine with the story of Rhett and I? And so, you nailed it just a minute ago. It's like, so why am I calling it Jump Off the Dock? Because of that story. Because how do we lead in a way those people who are not sure of the skills it takes, those people who are maybe not sure what does it look like to lead well, and to lead with conviction, and to lead with a lens of servanthood. What does it look like when I don't have skills and I'm not real sure what to do? That's why Leading Impact was created, is for us to be able to walk alongside those people who are looking to lead well, who wants to lead well, who knows there's a difference in a different way to lead, and maybe they just don't know how. Maybe they're just not sure how. That's why Leading Impact was created. And through that lens of how do we lead to a point that we ourselves can model those of how to jump off the dock.
Yeah.
But more importantly, how are we leading people that when they step to the edge to look, and it looks like this is a monumental task. Like there's a line in the book that says, it was only 18 feet, but to him, it might as well have been a canyon. Yeah. Right? So how are we leading people when they step to the edge of the dock in life, at work, as a father, as a husband, as a mother, when they put their toes on the end and they look down and it looks monumental? How are we leading people to the point that they'll jump?
Yeah.
And jump off the dock knowing that what you've given them, what you've taught them, what you've led, given them in terms of leadership is going to give them everything they need, even when it looks monumental, that they'll jump off the dock.
Yeah. And that's where, and we can probably put a pin on this here, but you're in a spot and in a season of your life where you were kind of pushed to a degree. You were pushed in your faith and in your courage and in your, you saw a big challenge.
Yeah.
But what if you didn't have to go through that? What if I didn't have to wreck my car? What if I didn't have to come to that? where would I be now? If I had trusted the gifts that were put inside of me before ever getting to that point? What if I learned those values in the simple things rather than having to go through all of the hard stuff? Now, hard stuff does come. That's just the reality of life. But the hard things are there to make you stronger, not to bring you down. But there are so many things in my life, and this is just personal experience, that I kick the can down the road and down the road and down the road until finally I get to a place to where I'm having to make a decision. I'm having to get the courage to jump off the dock through drastic situations where I could have done that a lot further back up the road, and I never had to get to that place. I was never forced into a decision where if I would have just made the decision a little further back, how much more accomplished would I have felt personally that I got what it takes. And I think that's a big thing. And we'll find a landing spot eventually. But that's one of the things that I personally don't struggle with, is the question of, do I have what it takes? It's not something I've ever really struggled with personally, is feeling, am I enough? Because I'm the person that just says, yeah, let's jump. It's very easy for somebody in my character to say, let's try it, see what happens. If it doesn't work, we'll throw it away and try something else. That's okay. And it's real hard for me as a person to empathize with somebody that's on the other side of the aisle.
See, and I think that's probably why, Daniel, is why it took me to that point, is because I'm not that way.
Yeah.
If we, at some point in time we ever get to the backstory and we will really want to peel that onion really deep, there's things through my life and experiences and things that's happened that it took me 40 years.
Yeah,
to realize and to peel, and I mean, a lot of it had to do with the love and faith, and I would say the consistency of people around me who love me well and love me because I'm Trey and not because of anything else, to ask the right questions. And I think for me, it all boils down to that question for me was humility, not in the sense that I thought that I was too good to do it, but I think it was a combination of humility to let go of control.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was the fear of, if I let go of this, what's going to happen?
Sure.
Because I didn't feel like I had the skill, the worth. I didn't have what it took. When I had people around me saying, hey, what are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? But for me internally, and so the more I felt like this was, the harder I squeezed, right? Yeah. And I think that was God's way of saying, let go, right? Let go. And in the midst of that, I've learned a lot in the last 2 years, especially in the last 15 months, 16 months of the story of our lives is going to be written. It's already wrote.
Being written every day. That's right.
And it looks a lot better when we let go of the pen.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, especially over the last 6 months, especially. But when you let go of the pen and you let him author, it's a lot more beautifully written.
Yeah.
And in the midst of that, I have seen in the last year, specifically the last 6 months, the beauty of that. And hence, that's why, Leading Impact was created and birthed. And here we sit, right, with the first episode of Jumping Off the Dock podcast, and the book's being written. And it's by the grace and the call and the push and the wisdom of the Holy Spirit. And, those that are loving around me to say, hey, go do it. And the more that I step into it, the more I realize that it wasn't me anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right? That's, and as Bible believing Christians, and there will be people that listen whether they're listening in the next 2 weeks or the next 6 months, there will be people that listen that question in their faith. They what they put their faith in. You have to realize that we believe 100% that we have a divine creator.
Yeah.
100%. There's a divine creator. We're not going to make spiritual arguments, but that's how we believe.
Yeah.
Because we have to have a target. Whether it's in our spiritual life, in our professional life, in our family life, we have to have a target. And if I'm not aiming for something, I'm going to miss everything. And we'll make no bones about it on the podcast. You'll hear references to God, and it's not to challenge you in your faith to say, well, you're wrong, but it is to challenge you in your faith to say, is there more to this than I'm missing?
Yeah.
Is there more that I'm missing? And you'll get those themes on this podcast. So if that offends you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. But I'm sorry that this platform didn't. How's that?
And that's a big part of me. It's a big part of my story, and it's a big part of why I'm jumping off the dock. Off the dock podcast is even here, right? Is like, how do we reach people?
Yeah.
That's not in our geographical circle and right now in the moment, or at some place I may be at some point in time over the next 6 weeks, year, 2 years, 5, whatever that looks like. But how do we share the stories, and how do we share the insights, and how we share the wisdom and the love and the things that we experience and I've experienced over the last 17 years that's got us to this point? And how do we share the insights of what leadership looks like? But yeah, you're right. There's always will be the moment and the theme of understanding that Jesus is the reason, and Jesus is the reason that I'm sitting here, and the whole purpose behind this. Because ultimately, and I speak about this in the book too, ultimately the best teacher we ever had on earth was Jesus.
Yeah.
And the best leader we've ever had on earth was Jesus, and he showed us the way.
Yeah.
And it's when you think through the lens of servant leadership, when you think of how do we lead to create impact, hence leading impact.
Yeah.
And when we lead people to the way in terms of servanthood and loving truth, to step to the end and jump, what better model?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank everybody for tuning in of Jumping Off the Dock podcast. I want to thank Daniel for being behind the scenes and helping me co-host and the controls and everything that's going on. If you need more information, you can go to leadingimpact.org.
Yeah.
Trey at leadingimpact.org is my email address. And I hope that you'll come back and tune in as we get this plane up off the ground, and that we will, hopefully that you'll, gain some insight and some takeaways, and that ultimately we hope to have people, right, to come in and interview people and to have some, to change it up some. But, this is something that we felt like God was calling us into, and I'm looking forward to doing this, with you and with others, hopefully along the way. But we
like to collaborate.
We do, and I hope that when the moment comes, today or this week or whenever you listen, that it will challenge you, that somebody in your life that you're leading well, that when they step to the edge, they'll jump.
Thanks for listening to Jump Off the Dock. Visit leadingimpact.org for blogs and leadership resources. For questions or pricing, email Trey at leadingimpact.org. We are ready to help you flip fear to courage